Japan, home of anime, ninjas, sushi, and two of the world's best airlines. And since Japan also happens to be my favorite country, I decided to take a flight on each airline to see which is actually better based on these 5 categories. Now up first today, I'm gonna be flying on Japan Airlines, and it is like 5 a.m. in the morning, and I am extremely tired right now. I'm also running extremely late today. Now that I was in the airport and past the robot security, I tried my best to find the Japan Airlines check-in area, but then I had a slight issue. I'll be completely honest, I am totally lost right now. None of the kiosk machines are working over here. Apparently there's 2 wings, but I can't figure out which side my flight's gonna be on. And there's also like 40 minutes until my flight boards, and I haven't got my boarding pass. So far we're off to a questionable start. So yes, I was a little bit stressed, but then eventually I did find some of the working kiosks. So after agreeing that I didn't have anything dangerous, I was able to fully check in. Crisis averted. I was able to get the boarding pass, and as you can see, it looks completely different here in Japan. Normally in North America, it's like big and has a bunch of stuff on it, but this one's pretty straightforward. Now, I did hear on the overhead that apparently because there's poor visibility, there's a decent chance that this flight gets delayed. I'm not too sure. So I may have gotten to the airport at like 5 a.m. for no reason at all. But now that I'm done the check-in process, it's time to head through security to check out what's on the other side. And overall, I'm gonna give Japan Airlines 3 stars for the check-in, but after looking at the creepy Squid Games board to find my flight info, I was able to make my way through security. But now since there's only about 20 minutes before my flight, let's check out what a Japanese airport is actually like. Right away, I was able to find a bakery, snack plaza, Japanese TVs for sale, and also these massage chairs. This is very relaxing. And besides that, there were some random art things I could walk through, some seating areas, more closed restaurants, and a smoking lounge, but at least I found some vending machines that were on. I know you're probably not supposed to do this, but the walkway is extremely bouncy. I don't want to break it though, so we're gonna stop. But now that boarding is just about to start, I think there's like 10 minutes left before we do, I thought I'd take this time to read you guys some of the reviews about Japan Airlines just so we know what we're in for. And since they're one of the best airlines in Japan, the reviews should be pretty good. Phenomenal service from a highly professional airline. The fact the seat was booked as economy made no difference. Staff were friendly, smart, and efficient. 5 stars. The seats are comfy, they have the fruity juice that's a perfect combination of everything, and overall one of the best airlines. 5 stars. The airline staff was both nice and efficient. We experienced electrical issues sitting on the runway that required 3 hours of maintenance, but they did keep us informed the entire time. 4 stars. So I think it's time to board the plane to find out for ourselves. Boarding in Japan is unlike North America or anywhere else. You literally don't have to show ID, you just scan your boarding pass and you're good to go. In most countries, they'll check your passport, they'll look at your ID, but here it is like super quick and super easy. It's time for the first flight on Japan Airlines. But before I got onto the flight, I needed to make sure I had my Airlo eSIM. You see, when I travel abroad, especially like here in Japan, instead of overpaying for local SIM cards and potentially losing my own, Airlo and their eSIM solve this problem. Using the link down in the description to download Airlo, not only is it trusted by 15 million users worldwide and cheaper than the alternatives, but it also has over 200 countries and regions of coverage, which is always helpful for when I'm making these videos. Download the Airlo app and use the code ERIC3 for $3 off your first eSIM purchase. You can also use this QR code or use the link down below to get Airlo today. But now that I've got mine, it's time for the flight. Hi there. Making my way onto the plane, I passed by the premium economy, and eventually I made it back to my seat in the regular economy. So some initial thoughts. Straight away, I think this is the most comfortable economy class seat I have ever sat in my entire life. The butt cushion, super padded. The backrest is incredibly soft, and the headrest is really, really nice too. Normally when you fly economy, the seat is super stiff, it's super hard. Within a few hours, your back is gonna be absolutely destroyed. But if I'm being completely honest, this seat feels like a premium economy seat quality, maybe even some business class seat quality, and this ticket cost me like $100. So in terms of the seat for now, I'm gonna have to give it a solid 5 stars. Now, this is a temporary rating because my back can start hurting within the next 30-40 minutes, so we'll have to wait and see. On top of that, there's the entertainment system, which we're gonna have to go through once we're in the air, and there is still so much more to this seat that we're gonna have to check out, so let's get started. Starting with the legroom, things were pretty solid, and the recline was really good too. Under the TV, there were some USB ports
shorts, and also some free headphones. There was a full-size power outlet, some place to put books, a cup holder, this futuristic window which dimmed by hitting a button, and also the seat pouch which had things like the barf bag.
I know I only just got on the plane, but like, I might have this entire row to myself, which is always a win. I'm not gonna take having the entire row to myself into account when it comes to rating things, because that is completely random and completely up to chance. But if you've ever had this happen to you, it is always a complete win. I am so happy right now.
But at this point, despite the crazy rain, we actually started pushing back from the gate, and soon it was time for takeoff.
Now that we're in the air, I'm happy to confirm that I got the entire row to myself. That is elite. Now, one of the things about Japan Airlines, and I think it applies to every single airline in Japan, is that the boarding times are absolutely crazy. On my boarding pass from earlier, it literally said that boarding was 20 minutes before departure. And if you're in Europe, the Middle East, or any other part of the world, that's insane because you board like 45 minutes before. Because everyone was just scanning their own passes, it was super quick and super speedy. And we actually ended up pushing back from the gate a few minutes early.
So at this point, I decided to continue exploring by trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, which happened to be pretty quick. And then I decided to use my complimentary headphones to check out the entertainment system. Going through the movies, there was a decent selection, but when it came to TV, it was pretty much only Japanese ones, which makes sense. Besides that, there was also news, audio, and my personal favorite, the flight map. But as I was doing that, the flight attendant had come around and given me a drink, which was the fruity juice from the reviews.
This is probably the most turbulent flight I have ever been on in my entire life. But to be fair, the pilot is doing a great job not crashing the plane. And then I also decided to get a glass of water, but the only unfortunate thing is that they weren't serving any snacks, which kind of sucks. But again, it was only a 1 hour flight, so it's kind of hard to judge. So when it comes to the snack/meal service, I'm gonna have to give it a 4.
But since I did have all that liquid, I think it's time to check out the most important thing on the flight, the bathroom. And to be completely honest, this one was super clean and had everything you would come to expect. So I'd have to give that 4 stars, and overall I would give Japan Airlines a solid 4.2. But now that I was landing, it's time to see how ANA compares. So now that I'm done the first flight on Japan Airlines, it's time for the second flight on ANA. And since these two are the best airlines in the entire country, it's going to be super interesting to see which one of them is actually better. And now that I'm here at the airport, it's time to head inside to check in and grab our boarding pass. Now that I was inside the airport, I made my way to the kiosk area, but the only problem was that the first machine I used just straight up freaked out, and the second one actually worked. Now, besides the fact that the machine was extremely buggy and took like a billion button presses, we were able to get the boarding pass. And just like the flight from earlier, this one's boarding time is 20 minutes before taking off, which is insane considering it's one of those massive planes, and it's also a 6 o'clock flight, which is supposed to be really busy. So this flight might be completely full, and it's still supposed to board in 20 minutes. Now that I have the boarding pass and we know that I'm in the window seat, I want to show you guys a really cool thing at this airport, because there's barely anything like this in the entire world. And that's because after making my way up a couple of escalators and skipping security, I made my way to the observation deck. You see, at pretty much every airport in the world, once you get there, you're trapped inside, it feels kind of claustrophobic and it sucks. But here in Japan, especially in Osaka, it literally has an observation deck where you could stand up top, you can watch the planes land. If you look behind me, there's one landing literally right now as we speak, which is super cool. So if you're someone who's a big plane nerd, this is essentially a wet dream for you. And this is only one side of it because it goes all the way down to the other side, and I'm pretty sure there's a play area for little kids. There's literally a furniture store behind me, which is a little strange for an airport. There's an entire candy store up here, and also this thing. Japan. But now that I was done on the observation deck, it was finally time to make my way to the flight. So apparently there's been like a 10-minute delay because the gate had to change. I'm not really sure why the gate changed like 30 minutes before departure. So that's not great considering the flight from earlier wasn't delayed and this one is. But now while I have a few more minutes, I thought I'd take this time to read you guys some of the reviews about ANA just so we know what we're in for. And obviously how they might compare to Japan Airlines. Excellent airline. We flew ANA 10 years ago and again now, and the quality of the service was great and is still great. Always on time, good food, and terrific crews. 5 stars. ANA is about as good as they come these days. Boarding was super orderly, legroom, even in economy class, was pretty good, entertainment selection was solid, 5 stars. Service was very nice. Airplane was clean, staff both at the airport and during the flight were excellent, 4 stars.
But just like I said earlier, the reviews are one thing and sometimes the flight itself can be completely different. So I think it's time to head to the gate and board the ANA flight.
And this actually happened to be perfect timing because as I said this, the plane was pulling in.
Time to see how ANA compares to Japan Airlines. We're about to find out which is actually the best in the entire country. Hi there. Thank you.
Just like the flight from earlier, this plane was the exact same layout, and soon enough I had made it back to my seat in economy.
Alright, so some initial thoughts. Right off the bat, I have to say, this seat isn't quite as comfortable as the one in Japan Airlines. Now don't get me wrong, the butt cushion, still soft. Backrest, still pretty padded. And the headrest, it's okay. By no means is it bad, it's still pretty solid, but Japan Airlines just gets the edge. When it comes to legroom, I'm also gonna have to give it to Japan Airlines. There's just a little bit more. And on top of that, it seems like there was more storage on that flight as well. To be fair, on ANA, the entertainment screen is so much bigger. Now I will say, these are just my first thoughts. Just got on the plane, could be completely different in about an hour. We'll soon find out.
Looking around the seats some more, there was plenty of room for storage under the seat. A large tray table, but this time the cup holder was built in. There were full-sized outlets, a large seat pouch along with a barf bag, a reading lamp, but no air conditioning, and also a pretty big window.
Now I'll be completely honest, I think this flight is going to be completely full, but as of right now, the 2 seats beside me are empty. Do I think they're going to stay that way? Probably not, but if they do, that'll be some sort of divine intervention and extreme luck. But I think the craziest thing so far is the fact that even though we were delayed by about 10 minutes, this flight is practically fully boarded. So I'm pretty sure we're going to start pushing back from the gate any minute now.
And boy was I right, because on cue we started to push back, and soon enough it was time for takeoff.
Now unfortunately, I didn't get nearly as lucky as I had hoped. On the flight earlier, there was no one beside me. This one, to be fair, there's no one in the middle. I didn't get the entire row to myself, which is totally fine because no one in the middle seat is way more than I was expecting.
Now that I was in the air, I tried connecting to the Wi-Fi, but it was completely freaking out. So instead, it was time to explore the entertainment. First of all, this screen was bigger than Japan Airlines, and when it came to the movies, there was a decent selection. But checking out the audio and TV shows, it was also pretty heavy on the Japanese content as expected. But as always, there was my favorite part, which was the in-flight map. Anyways, shortly after that, I was served some juice and water, but needing to then use the bathroom, I decided to check things out while I was there. And not only were there tons of mirrors, but it was super solid.
It turns out I lied. Those snacks were not for us. I'm pretty sure it was actually for the premium economy or the business class. Unfortunately, when you fly economy, you can't even get snacks on either of these airlines. I'm just joking. These flights were only an hour, so it makes sense. But the juice that I did get was super solid. Now, there's only about 10 minutes left in this flight, and I'll be completely honest, this seat is not as comfortable as Japan Airlines. In fact, it's at the point now where my back is already a little bit sore, and we've only been flying for like 50 minutes, which is never a good sign, so I'm definitely gonna have to give the win to Japan Airlines on that one. And as for all the other things, since there's only about 10 minutes left, I think it's time to give you guys my final thoughts on which of the 2 airlines I think are actually better.
But now that I've experienced everything, how would I rate things? Well, when it came to the meal, it's a tie at 4 stars. The bathroom for ANA gets the edge at 4.5. The seat on Japan Airlines takes the edge with 5 stars. The staff both get 5. And finally, Japan Airlines also gets the win with the check-in, making it the best airline in Japan. But if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to subscribe and watch this one next.